There is a kind of loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness. You can still be around people. You can still talk, still smile, still move through your day. And yet, something feels different. No one really talks about this. Even the people closest to you may not notice it. And if you feel it, you probably don't say it either, because it's hard to explain. Nothing is obviously wrong. Nothing is clearly missing. And still, something feels quietly changed. Everything looks the same. The same home, the same chair, the same light coming through the window. The phone still rings sometimes. People still visit. Life still goes on. From the outside, nothing has been taken away. And yet, something no longer feels the way it used to. Not something you can name. Not something you can point to. Just a quiet sense that something inside is no longer being met in the same way. You are still here. You still think. You still remember. You still feel everything. Nothing about you has disappeared. And yet, something in the way you are received has changed. People listen, but not for long. They care, but not deeply. They see you, but not fully. And slowly, you begin to feel you are still part of life, but no longer at the center of it. And maybe this is the part no one tells you about. Getting older is not only about the body, it is also about your place, quietly changing in the world. There is no clear moment, no event you can point to. It just happens, slowly, gently, until one day, you don't think it, you feel it. A quiet feeling that something inside you has been waiting for a long time, not to be fixed, but simply to be truly seen. Nothing really broke. Nothing ended in a clear way. There was no moment you could point to and say, this is when it changed. Life simply continued. Days passed. Seasons moved. Everything on the outside remained in place. Your home, your routine, your life, all still there. And yet, the way you felt inside that life was no longer the same. And the hardest part is, you don't even know when it began. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, over many years. Children grew. They stepped into their own lives. Not because they stopped caring, but because this is what life does. Everyone moves forward. Schedules fill up. Distance becomes normal. Calls become shorter. Visits become less frequent. They don't disappear. They are just less present. And little by little, the space between moments begins to widen. There is no one to blame. No one did anything wrong. Life simply shifted. But something inside you did not move in the same way. You still remember what it felt like when you were needed, when your presence mattered every day. The noise, the movement, the sense of being woven into everything. And now, life feels quieter, slower, more distant. And one day, you don't think about it. You just feel it. And then, something becomes clear. People don't need you the way they used to. Not in the way that once gave you a sense of place. You are still loved, but it feels different. You are still included, but not in the same way. And slowly, You begin to feel like you are standing just slightly outside the center of life. Not rejected, not pushed away, just no longer held as closely as before. And this is how the change quietly begins. The hardest part of aging is not losing people. It's not the distance. It's not even the silence. It's something much quieter than that. It's the slow realization that you are becoming less visible in the lives that once revolved around you. Not suddenly, not completely, just gently, like your presence is no longer something the world leans toward. You are still here, still alive, still aware, still feeling everything, and yet something has shifted in the way you are received. And no one really talks about this. Maybe you've had a moment like this. You're sitting with people you love. They are talking, laughing. The room feels warm, alive, and everything looks the same. And yet, no one is really with you. You are listening. You are there. But something no longer reaches you in the same way. Your words feel lighter when they leave you. Your presence feels softer in the room. Not rejected, not pushed away, just not fully met. And slowly, you begin to notice something you cannot unsee. You are still alive, but no longer central in anyone's world. You are included, but not needed in the same way. You are remembered, but not searched for in the same way. And there is a quiet difference between being loved and being deeply felt. And that kind of loneliness is the quietest one, because it doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't make noise. It simply stays. At some point, you stop expecting to be fully seen. You stop waiting for someone to truly understand what is happening inside you, and you don't say it out loud, because even you don't quite know how to explain it, and that's when the silence begins to change. Not empty, heavy, because it is no longer just around you. It begins to live within you, and quietly, without asking, you begin to carry it everywhere you go. There is a reason this kind of loneliness hurts so deeply. It is not simply about being alone. It is about losing something. Very quiet, very subtle. Something you may not even notice until it begins to fade. All your life, you have come to know that you are here, through other people. Not through words, not through explanations, but through small moments, when someone looked at you and something inside gently settled. I am here. For a moment, you felt real, and without even thinking, you trusted that feeling. When someone truly sees you, you don't have to try to be anyone. You simply rest. Your body softens. Your thoughts become quieter. There is nothing to prove, nothing to hold. You just are. And over time, these quiet moments begin to shape something inside you. A subtle sense that you belong, that you matter. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to lean on it. So what happens when that quiet sense begins to fade? When fewer people really meet you, something inside begins to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just a quiet uncertainty. You are still here. Nothing about you has disappeared, and yet something feels less stable, like you are no longer standing in the same place within the world. Not because you moved, but because the way you are reflected has changed. And slowly, a question begins to form, not in words, but in feeling. Do I still matter? This is why it hurts. Not because there are no people, but because something inside you no longer feels the same connection to itself. It is not the absence of others. It is the absence of that quiet reflection you once relied on. And when that fades, the mind tries to hold on. It returns to old memories, old roles, the past, trying to rebuild a sense of self from what used to be. But something deeper still feels empty, because something subtle is happening here. Every feeling begins softly, not yet defined, not yet solid, like a wave. But when the mind tries to hold it, to name it, something is missing. I am no longer seen. That soft wave begins to tighten. It becomes something more solid, more personal, more heavy. And this is where the pain begins. Not from the moment itself, but from the way it is held. So what happens when nothing is holding it anymore? Most people, at this stage of life, don't say, "I feel lonely." They don't ask to be seen. They don't explain what is happening inside them. Instead, they say things like, "I'm okay. I don't need anything. Don't worry about me." And when you hear it, it sounds calm. It sounds like acceptance, like they have made peace with being alone. But something deeper is quietly happening, because what you are hearing is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of something very gentle, protecting itself. Because asking to be seen can feel more painful than being invisible. There is a quiet dignity in not needing, in not reaching, in not placing your heart somewhere it may not be fully received. So instead, the heart begins to step back, not all at once, not in a way anyone can clearly see, just a little less open, a little less expressed, not because it no longer feels, but because it has learned what it feels may not be held the same way anymore. So the feeling does not disappear. It remains, but it becomes quieter, less visible, less shared, and over time, it begins to live more inside than outside. You still feel it, in small moments, when the room is quiet, when no one calls, when the day moves slowly, but instead of reaching out, you stay, not because you don't need connection, but because something inside you no longer expects to be fully met, and so you carry it, gently, silently, without asking anyone to see it. What if this loneliness is not taking something away, but quietly removing everything that once depended on being seen? What if nothing about you has actually disappeared? Only the way you used to feel yourself is no longer there, because for so long you knew you were here through others, through their eyes, their attention, their response. And when the world becomes quieter, that way of knowing begins to fade. And when it fades, it can feel like you are fading too. But something else begins to appear, very quietly, so subtle, it is easy to miss. When there is no one reflecting you, there is still something here, that knows you are here. Not through a thought, not through a feeling, just a simple knowing. Like the sky does not need to be seen to be there. Some traditions have pointed to this as a different kind of seeing. In Buddhist wisdom, this is a seeing that does not depend on being seen, a knowing that does not come from reflection. It is already here. Before anyone looks at you, before anyone calls your name, before any role, any story, any identity appears. And even now, when the world becomes quiet, it is still here, unchanged. Something very subtle is happening here. Every feeling, every sense of self begins softly, not yet formed, not yet solid, like a wave, and for a moment it is open, fluid, free. But when the mind tries to hold it, to shape it, I am needed, I am important, I am seen. That gentle wave begins to contract. It takes form, something more solid, something more personal. And slowly, you begin to rely on that form to feel real. So when life no longer supports it, it feels like something inside you is breaking. But what if nothing is actually breaking? What if those forms were never what you are, and what you are was never something that needed to become solid? Because when something is not held, it does not become heavy. When it is simply noticed, it remains a gentle movement, and gently it passes. Awareness does not need reflection, because it was never a thing that needed to become something in the first place. You are not disappearing. You are simply becoming less dependent on being seen. And maybe what you are feeling right now does not need to be fixed. You don't have to make it better. You don't have to push it away. It only needs to be gently held. For example, there may be a moment when you are sitting alone and a quiet heaviness begins to appear. Usually, we try to distract ourselves or tell ourselves to stop feeling this way, but this time, you simply sit and let it be there, and something inside you begins to soften. This is what compassion really feels like. It is not something you create. It happens when you stop fighting what is already here. In Buddhist wisdom, understanding and compassion are not separate. When you see clearly, something in you naturally becomes gentle, like when you see a small child who is tired and a little sad. You don't tell them to be stronger. You don't explain what they should do. You simply sit beside them and stay. And maybe you can begin to meet yourself the same way. Living this way is very simple. It shows up in small moments. For example, when someone in your family does not call and you feel a quiet hurt, instead of saying, "They don't care," or "I shouldn't feel this," you just notice. This hurts, and you stay with it, gently. Or when you're eating alone, in a quiet room, instead of turning something on to fill the space, you simply sit and feel the moment as it is, not trying to change it, just not leaving. This is how compassion lives. When it comes with wisdom, it is not heavy. It does not make you lose yourself. It is quiet, steady, like sitting on a bench, watching people pass by. You don't need to hold on to anything. You don't need to push anything away. You are just here. And maybe this is a new way of being. You don't need to be needed to feel meaningful. You don't need someone to look at you to know you are here. You can simply sit, breathe, and feel that you are still, gently alive. The house is still there, the same walls, the same chair, the same quiet light coming through the window. Nothing has changed on the outside, the same silence, the same body sitting here. And yet, something feels different. This time, you are here, not waiting for someone to notice you, not hoping someone will understand. You are simply here. The silence is still the same, but it no longer feels empty. It feels open, like a space that does not need to be filled. You can sit in it, without rushing, without trying to change anything. And slowly, you begin to sense nothing was ever really missing. Nothing was taken away. Only the noise that once filled everything has become quiet. Maybe you were never forgotten. Maybe life simply became quieter, and without the noise, you begin to notice something that was always here. You are no longer looking for yourself in other people. You are no longer waiting for someone to show you who you are. And in this quiet, something remains. Very simple, very steady, still here. And in this quiet, you begin to meet not a new version of yourself, but something that has always been here, even before anyone looked at you, even before anyone called your name, and even now, when no one is around, it is still here. You're still here. And maybe this is not an ending, just a gentle return to a place that has always been home. And before this moment comes to an end, there is something you can simply listen to. These sounds have been carried through many generations, often used in moments of stillness like this, not to explain, but to soothe, not to teach, but to gently hold whatever has been left unspoken. In some traditions, this is known as a compassion chant, but you don't need to know its name. You don't need to understand it. Just let the sound be here. Let it move through the space, through the breath, through the quiet that is no longer separate from you, and gently allow it to soften whatever is still tired inside, to loosen whatever is still being held, so that you can rest, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. And in this quiet, you may begin to feel you are never separate from the life that has been holding you all along.
Ishvaraya Bodhisattvaya Mahasattvaya Mahakarunikaya Om Sarvarabhaya Sudhanadhasye Namaskritva imam आर्यावलोकितेश्वरारम्धावा नमो नरखिन्दी हृदीः महावधासमा सर्वार्थसिद्धुं शुभम् अजयं सर्वसत्त्वनामवस्त्यनमो वाचमार्गदातु तदीयथा अवलोकी लोकाते करातेरिह महाबोधिसत्त्वा सर्व मलमाला महिमहिदायं कुरु कर्मं धुरु विजयते महाविजयते धर धीरिनीश्वराय कालचलमामवमारमुक्तिले शिन अरशं प्रचलि विषं प्राशय हुरु मरहुलुहुलुरी सर सिरि सुरु बोधिय बोधय मैत्रिय नरकिन्दी दर्शिनी न भयमाना स्वाहा सिद्धाय स्वाहा महासिद्धाय स्वाहा सिद्धाय योगेश्वराय स्वाहा नरकिन्दी स्वाहा नर स्वाहा शिरसममुखाय स्वाहा सर्वमहासिद्धाय स्वाहा चक्रसिद्धाय स्वाहा पद्महस्ताय स्वाहा नरकिन्दिवगराय स्वाहा मगरीशङ्कराय स्वाहा नमः रत्नत्रयाय नमो आर्यावलोकितेश्वराय स्वाहा ॐ सिद्ध्यन्तु मन्त्रपदाय स्वाहा।